In this episode, we're going to look at a Garrard LAB 80. This is a turntable that dates back to 1964, fully automatic, 56 years old this year, all metal construction, and guess what? It doesn't work. Surprise, surprise. We're going to have to pull this one apart and lubricate the gears and lubricate the mechanism that's sticking, and hopefully we're going to get this thing working properly. Should be a good one. Let's check it out. This is a Garrard LAB 80 turntable that I received the check over, and see if it works, and it's going to need a good lubrication and cleaning, I'm sure. But let's get started by first putting a record on it and see if it'll actually play anything. Well, the arm doesn't appear to be dropping. Ah, that's the arm dropper. That part works. So that's how you operate it. That's how you operate this. To drop the arm and then pull the manual back. Now, from what I understand on these, and I've been a while since I've even seen one of these things. It's been years. I've only, I think, seen one or two of these things in my life, and that was when I worked at the shop. And I wasn't even actually the guy that worked on it. It was my assistant. But from what I understand, if you don't have the the auto spindle for the record changer, that the auto doesn't do anything. Without the optional spindle, which was a stacking spindle, it disables the auto on these. So you turn it to manual, move the arm over, and then depress the arm drop lever. And of course this time it's not going to hold, not going to lock it. Probably because it's gummed up. That's supposed to. It did work. Now it's not. Well, now we know what we have to do on this. Let's figure out why it's not locking in and dropping the arm. Let's take a look on the bottom side of this unit. So we look at the bottom of this unit, and it's all metal, unlike the duals, which had a lot of plastic. The dual had a plastic cam gear. This is all metal, but they suffer the same problem that the duals do, and that's that the pivots, the bearings, and the linkage gets gummed up. So what we want to make sure is we want to make sure all of this linkage is free. This is the one that drops the arm. So when you press that in, if this were to stick, of course it's not going to drop the arm if this lever sticks. So this lever here has to be completely free, as do all these other hinge points. Anything that gets gummed up on any of these is going to cause problems, and the grease is actually quite dry on this. So I think the first thing I need to do is I need to basically go through and give this thing a lubricant, maybe even a little bit of penetrating oil to lubricate all the bearings and all of the pivots on here, on all these levers. The auto mechanism is down here. This is the gear that controls everything. So if the little catch on that gets gummed up, it'll cause problems with the unit not stopping and not starting properly. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through with my oil and just going to oil all of the pivot points on this. None of them are seized up at this point. I'm just going to put a drop of oil on all of the pivot points to free anything up that's maybe starting to stick. Now, the only lever that was sticking slightly was the queuing lever, this one here. It's spring loaded, so when you pull the queuing, this is the queuing button. When you push that button in, this is the queuing lever to drop it. What that does is this pulls down. This is what drops the arm over here. So when you push the button in on the other side, you can see it operates this lever here. And let me lower the camera down a bit. So this is the queuing arm over here. This is what controls the arm, dropping the arm. When this lever moves down, that releases the arm. When the lever moves up, this is what pulls the arm down. When you pull it down like that, that drops the arm. And when it's released, that raises the arm up again. That's the arm lifter. So this lever here was sticking a bit. It's actually pulled back by a spring, and it was just gummed up a bit on the shaft here. So I just got a bit of oil down into that bearing, and that's freed that part up. All the other levers here are also free. Nothing is sticking. I'm going to continue to put a bit of oil into each of the rest of them, and then we'll try this thing out and see if I've made any improvement. Next, I want to look down into the turntable itself on the into the bearing here. So I got to remove. There's a clip on here, and I got to be careful when I take this clip off because there is a bearing in here I don't want to have come apart on me. So I'm going to remove the retaining clip like that. So I should be able to remove the platter now that I've removed the larger of the two clips by just giving this thing a tap. It's a tapered shaft, so this should pull the platter off without taking the bearing apart. It will come off. There we go. That's all you need to take the platter off of one of these. You don't want to take off that inner clip because that is the one that actually holds the bearing, and you'll lose all the ball bearings if you take the smaller clip. So you don't take that smaller clip off, just the bigger one, and then the platter will lift right off. This is the workings of the automatic mechanism. When you turn the unit on to auto, this lever here will normally lift up, and what you need to have happen is there's a catch on here that kicks this over to start the auto mechanism. So I'm thinking the reason why the auto mechanism isn't turning is because this gear itself is gummed up. If I turn it manually, nothing happens unless I give it a bit of a nudge. A little bit of a nudge, and then it'll grab. I think when it's finishing its cycle, it's not going all the way into place. is the bearing I'm after, though. This is all gummed up. Yeah. Oh, this is really gummed up. This is probably where our problem is, right in here. That gear. Let's just get some oil down there into this bearing, because this is really, it was really quite stiff. So if I can free that bearing up a bit. And this one. That's a lot better right there. Yeah, that was all gummed up. Grease is dried up around here too. Get some Molykote grease. I'm getting really low on it now. This package is almost done. I've only got like 2 packages left, and I'm going to have to source some more or go to something else. But how it works is, as we rotate the gear, on the bottom of this there's a little catch, and that little catch sits in this hole here. See that hole? If this is held down, that little catch locks that gear in place. And what's supposed to happen when the record gets to the end or you hit the reject, this lever kicks up and it lifts this, which allows that little catch to release. You can see where it wears. You can see the groove it's worn on there, on the gear itself right down here. Right, you can see it. But that little hole there, that's what holds it. There's a little catch on the bottom of this, if I can get the camera in to show you guys. Right down on the bottom, if I can find something to point with, there's a little catch right down there. That little catch is what is holding that gear in place, so the gear doesn't turn. Just like that. And when this lifts up, the gear moves, and it's still a bit gummed up, but the gear will move into position, and then it will catch and move it. I got this thing propped up on boxes so nothing's touching below. Okay, that is holding it. I just cleaned it up a bit, and that is holding. Because when I pull this up, you should see that gear shift ever so slightly. I still got to free the gear up, or free up the mechanism that's trapping it. It's pulled by a spring. But when I lift this up, that should snap over a bit. And it's not. So let me just get on the bottom again and see why it's not moving. It should be this spring here that pulls this thing over, this mechanism here. That's what engages it. I'm convinced that it's still, the main gear here is still maybe sticking ever so slightly. It seems to be moving very freely, but it just appears that something in here is sticking. Because basically when the release catch on the top releases, this should automatically advance forward. This spring pulls it in place, but something is sticking ever so slightly. See, here's where this is where it gets into the rest position. It should stop there, and it will pull the spring will pull it forward, but I think it's just sticking just ever so slightly at that point there. You see, that should snap down a lot quicker. Maybe just a little bit of lubricant in the bottom of this gear here might still be a little bit gummed up. So I'm going to take this piece apart again and take another look under here. So this is where it sits right here until that catch on the top releases, and then the spring action here pulls this into position. And that's what starts the mechanism operating. That's why before, when I was pushing on the lever here, it would operate. Could be, I mean, this lever here does not appear to be sticking at all. Either does this gear, for that matter. Like, this is turning very freely. Maybe just a little bit more oil. I don't want to take this all apart. To get at this, to take this gear right out, I would have to remove this whole mechanism. So I might try just some penetrating oil down there, which I'll just use WD-40. and see whether that'll make this even more free than it is. It doesn't appear to be binding at all now, but that's the only thing it can be, is this, either that or this gear here. It's just ever so slightly sticking. And I did lubricate it. It was gummed up really quite badly before. I'll try a little bit of penetrating oil down there and see if it makes it any better. Thing with WD-40, it is a fine oil, but it does have solvents in it, which will free up any, especially if there's some of the old grease like this stuff, the old dried grease. It'll actually liquefy it. So this stuff's really good at clearing up or removing old oil and grease and leaving its own film behind. Okay, let's see how it is now. If I go to that high point and let go of this, aha, see? So I'm just going to put another drop of oil, conventional oil, down here, just to, because the penetrating oil will dry eventually. So I want to give it just a little extra lubricant in there, and maybe on the shaft here. We'll try that, see whether that works. Okay, let's see what happens. If I push the auto button, this will kick over, release that gear, aha, now it's going smooth. Now it's going smooth. One full turn and stops. Auto. There we go. Okay, I'm liking it. Let's put the platter back on now. I won't even put it in the base yet. I'll just put the platter on and see whether we've got enough torque. And I'll see whether this will go through the motions before I put it all back together. Gets up to speed eventually, but the idler may be just a little too well worn. We'll see. Pick up at the end of the record. Well, that part's working now. Yeah, the auto, as far as auto drop on the record, I think does require the spindle, because there's a 45 spindle as well. But you set your record size with a control over a knob over here for 12, 10, or 7-inch records. But from what I understand, and again, I'm not an expert on these, maybe somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but you need the auto changer spindle for it to operate it automatic. Otherwise it just becomes a reject. So like if you've got a record playing, and I don't have a stylus on here so I can do this. Okay, get your record playing, you pull the auto down, and it's auto stop. If you put it in auto and it doesn't have the spindle on to detect if there's a stack of records, it just stops. If you have the correct spindle, the spindle is longer than this one here. It triggers the mechanism so that it knows that it's in full auto mode, because when you put the record on, it would drop the record first and then move the arm over. But without that, I believe it's just manual. And that part's working. When you put it in manual, and then when it gets to the end of the record, it'll pick up. It'll pick up providing that the idler is going to be strong enough, and then it'll stop. And of course, because this is a tapered, gotta give it a smack to get it to release. So we're gonna get some rubber renew onto this idler, as it's in relatively sad shape. So I'm just using MG Chemicals rubber renew. We'll just put this thing on and put some onto the idler and let it soak in for a while. This will hopefully give us enough torque. Shall we check the speed? So we're at 33.5. We can't do much about it on this because this turntable, of course, is a rim drive, so it's a little bit fast. But again, it's regulated by the speed of the motor, which is a synchronous type motor. It's actually an induction motor, but it's synchronized to the AC line. Let's see whether I've got enough torque now after putting some rubber renew. Damn, I think it's working. I'm going to put that clip back on, put it back in the box, and we'll test this thing out and see how this one sounds. But I think we're good. I think we're good on this one now. Incidentally, on this one, to set the weight, there's an adjustment screw back here. You can set that to 0. There's a little marking on the side of the arm here. And then you adjust your weight at the back to make the arm, of course, float, basically. Here we go, we're almost floating. Okay, now we're hanging pretty even. And then I haven't put the needle on, or I haven't put the stylus on yet, so I'm not quite perfect, but I'm close enough for demonstration. Then we take this up to say 2 grams, and now we should have a 2 gram tone arm. This is a different type of stylus. It's a round shank on this one. So I don't know what brand this is. It's probably a Shure, but an old one. And we'll just double check our weight. I'll take this back to 0. It shouldn't affect it, really. It really shouldn't affect it by much, if anything. The weight of the needle or the stylus itself is minimal. So there we are. If I take off the anti-skate weight, it is now hanging perfectly level. Down and then up. Okay, we're perfectly level. Now I'll move this up to 2 grams, approximately. And the weight on this is adjusted by moving this little counterweight here back and forth. Okay, let's try this out. Pull into manual, move the arm over to where I want it to drop, and drop the arm. I like it. I like this turntable. This is kind of neat. I know I'm playing crappy music because, you know, that's just what we do. We play focus on here. To reject, I pull the manual lever down towards manual, and that'll lift it. Then I can move it somewhere else and drop it again. And if I want to reject the entire record, just pull it to auto, and that'll reject it and stop it. Clunk, 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 all those mechanical gears. Nice metal gears too in this thing. You know, I hate to say it, but for all the dual lovers out there that love the dual turntables, this one's got them beat. Sorry, but this is all metal. All the gears in this thing are metal. It's wonderful. Love it. Garrard, made in England. This is a choice turntable. I wish this one was in my collection. I mean, it's not a belt drive. It's not a direct drive. It's an idler drive, but still, it's just something about it that's just cool. Gotta like that. That's just so cool. We'll just, the guy that owns this will be thrilled because the auto mechanism was just completely foobar on this thing. And now, if only he had the stacker, then it would play the records and drop them. But I'm going to say a success on this one. I didn't check the speed out for 45. We'll just do that while we're at it. Get my little RPM indicator here again. And we'll stop this thing. And turn it to 45. And I guess stop it because we have to start this thing up. We have to start this thing. It says, start your turntable. Okay, looks to be again 0.93% too fast. It's got 0.39%. Wow. I think we're okay for something that's as old as this thing is. We're okay. We'll just check that 33 again and check the wow on that. But I think we're okay now. Gone are the days of using strobe discs, right? Just put an app on your phone and be done with it. Our wow is 0.42%. I think we're in spec for a unit of this age. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one real soon. Bye for now.